Hello everyone and welcome back. So in this video, we're going to take a look how we control the size of our texture. Another thing that I want to do is maybe download a few other textures. So I'm not liking this texture too much. And maybe I think it's going to be better if I choose another texture to show a few things. Looking for wood, I'm going to try to see if I find some rock. Yeah, I think a rock going to make more sense. You're going to see better. So we're gonna download this one. So this one is something that we can use in our landscape later. So we're gonna go in download. Again, I'm gonna choose 4K. So another way to download is instead of put the material directly inside of your project, you can save in any place else inside of your computer and then unzip the file and go here in your Unreal Engine project and click import and find the textures inside of your computer, and then just select all the textures, import to your project like that, and then you're gonna have all the textures here. Of course, I can go and move all the maps directly to the texture folder to make things organized. And then here in the textures, I can go and create a folder. It's gonna be mossy ground, and then you can select everything and move to this folder like that. And now let's go back to our material. If instead of using this texture over here, we want to use another texture, we can go and drag and drop as we did here, or I can go and right click and search for the node texture sample. And the texture sample basically it's a node that asks for a texture. So I can go here in this drop down and search for the texture that I just import to my project. So in this case, it is mossy rocky ground. And if I want, I can go and duplicate this texture sample. And I'm gonna go here in the texture and find the other texture. So it's the normal. And then I'm gonna duplicate once more and search for the roughness, which is the maps that we are working right now. Okay, now we have all this texture the same way as we did here. Of course, that drag and drop is faster. So I'm just showing you like another way to do exactly the same thing. Now I can go and just plug again the maps. Okay, and then I'm gonna hit apply. And now we apply our texture here. Okay, so the goal of this video is create a functionality inside of our texture to make possible to increase and decrease the sampling of the textures, to increase the size of the texture. And to do that is very simple. So we just need to understand a few things. If I right click, I can have this whole list of a lot of nodes, but one node that we need to do that is a texture coordinate. This one over here. In the texture coordinate, you can see that we have this details panel, and all nodes gonna have a details panel. Similar here in the outliner, so each item in the outliner has some details that we can manipulate. Here the material is not different, so each node gonna have different set of properties that you can take care of. And this is a texture coordinate. In the texture coordinate, as you can see, have this UV tiling and UV tiling. So if you manipulate these values, you're gonna increase or decrease the size of your texture because you are manipulating the size of the U and the V tiling, which is the UV tiling. So here, if I want, here we have this UV input, right? And here we have this UV. So this UV input asking for output, which is the texture coordinate. So if I go here and plug the texture coordinate directly in this UV, we can see that we don't have any errors. And now we can go and manipulate this value. So for instance, I can go and change these values to 2. And why I connecting all the UVs in all the texture sample? Well, when you are creating PBR materials like that, you're going to have overlay. So you're going to have one texture stacked on top of the other. So we need to have the exactly same size of the UVs in order to make them match and make the material make sense. So we need to connect this texture coordinating all the nodes because they all need to have the same size. So now we're going to go here and first I'm going to put my material on side like that, and then I'm going to hit apply. And when I do that, you can see the size has changed. So I can go again and change the size for an even bigger number like 10, and then I'm going to apply again. And now we can see that our texture is even smaller in the sphere and in the cube because they are both the same texture. And of course I can do the opposite. So if I go here and press, use like 0.5 and hit apply, now the texture is bigger than it was before. And like that, we can manipulate the size. Another thing that we can do to be slightly less awkward to manipulate this value, it's instead of using the texture coordinate directly, we can use some other nodes to change this value directly inside of the material, not inside of the details panels of the node. So to do that, we need to go and right click, and we have the multiply node. And basically this multiply node gonna multiply the value A by the value B. So in this case, I'm gonna go and plug my texture coordinate in the A. So this is gonna be the A value. And then I'm gonna plug the multiply node in all the UVs like that. And now I need a B value to manipulate the size of the texture. So here we have one option. We can go and change directly on the B like that. So if I go here and put 5, the behavior is the same because I know that the A is 2 values, right? The U and the V, but you're gonna multiply these 2 values by 5, and then you're gonna make the texture looks bigger. And also it's better to set this value to 1. So now we know that's the factor of the multiplication. So we're gonna go and hit apply again. In this way, it's a little bit faster, a little bit easier to manipulate the size of your texture. And you can go further if you want. So maybe I want to rotate my texture. So how can we do that? Well, if you want to rotate your texture, we have another nodes that can help us to do that. So if I go here and right click and search for rotator, this one, custom rotator. This custom rotator, it's a function, a material function. We're gonna talk about that in a few videos. That basically, if I double click, it's some functionalities that someone at Epic Games create for us, and it basically makes easier to rotate our texture. So here in the custom rotator, it's asking for a few things. So it's asking for a UV. So here we have a UV. So in the multiply output, you are having a UV. So I can go and click here and plug my UVs directly here, and asking for a rotation center. So basically this is the pivot point of the texture, so we're not going to use this one. And also asking for a rotation angle. So the rotation angle is basically what angle do you want to rotate your texture. So it's 45 degrees, it's 90 degrees, it's 180 degrees. But they are saturating the 360 degrees in a value between 0 and 1. So now I can go here, and if I hold Alt and click, you can see that we disconnect the plugins. And now I can go here and connect my rotator, my custom rotator direct in the UVs. So now somehow we need to find a way to have a value to put here, because in the multiply node you can see that we have this B value, and you have this place over here where we can manipulate the B value, but here in the custom rotator you don't have. So how can you solve the problem? Well, so we can go and create a constant value, which is here. So I can go and connect, and I can set this value to wherever value I want. And I can even go and create a copy of this one, pressing Ctrl D, and use this here in the B instead of using this place. And then I can go and change the value again. So you can see that is exactly the same thing. So now I'm gonna go here and hit apply. And because this value is 0, nothing has changed. But if I go here and change this value to 0.1, so we need to remember the values of rotation is between 0 and 1. So 0.1, it's already something. And now when I do that, you can see that we rotate our texture. Easy like that. So yeah, but I'm not want to get too ahead of myself, guys. So I already showing a few nodes. And these nodes, if you're a completely beginner in textures, might be a little bit overwhelming. So I want you to practice a little bit with that to understand better how this texture works, the UVs and the custom rotator and so on. And in the next video, I'm gonna show you a very important approach in materials inside of Unreal, which is master materials and material instance, to make our process of creating materials faster. And of course, after that, we're gonna deep dive in some nodes, some essential nodes that we need to know in order to create materials. So I already present a few, like the texture coordinate, the multiply, the constant values, the texture sample. Even though it seems that we didn't do anything yet, we already know a bunch of nodes and what they do. So in the next videos, we're going to talk about master materials and material instance, and then we're going to make this texture coordinate even better. So see you there in the next video.